Okay, so this is part 2. So this will be our drop and our kick. We encompass both of these because they're small parts, but they go together at the same time, and both of them are very important. So first things first, before we get into that, you've seen me do my steps during my approach, which are 2 back and 2 left. I use 2 and 2 because that's where I feel I get the best approach and the best speed. Now that could change, but for the process of these videos, just stick to 2 and 2 because it's easy to remember, and it's relatively basic as well. Okay, so before we start looking at the actual drop, I just want to make a note. It's important to find an area where the ground is flat. And the reasons for that would just be if you try to kick off of a spot that has divots or holes or bumps or rocks or anything, there's a chance that your ball isn't going to drop completely vertically, or if you do drop it completely vertically, like on the come up after it bounces, there's a chance it could come off on an angle. And again, you want to control as many of these variables as you can during your kick, because if you have all of them controlled and you know exactly where the ball is going to be, this is going to make it a lot easier to kick. Our body position over top of the ball needs to be similar to this. So we have our arms straight and our chest is over top of the ball. We never want to drop the ball out like this or too far like this, just because this way it's a long space between my foot and where the ball is dropping, and this way it's way too close. So you need to make sure that your chest is over the ball in here. So as you can see, this distance is pretty much ideal. Before we get into our step and into our kick, it's a good practice to just kind of bounce the ball in the spot that you're going to be bouncing it to see if it'll drop straight up. Now I usually do 3 or 4 because that way you can take an average. There we go. See, that's perfect. So when we drop the ball, again, our chest is over the ball, our arms are straight, and we're dropping it straight up and down. Like I said, we've already marked it out, but just to make sure we know where we are, 1, 2, perfect. From here, we're going to walk through at half speed. Like I said before, it should be 2 steps, starting with your kicking foot, so that way your planting foot will happen right by the ball and your kicking foot is free. So you're here, 1, 2, drop. So as you can see, that drop wasn't ideal. It kind of came off to the side. And to get away from that, all you have to do is drop it a little bit closer to the ground. And as you can see here, I'm not leaning forward with it like this, or I'm not bringing it closer to me. The ball actually stays in the same plane. However, my body is just coming a little bit lower, so the distance between the ball and the ground is not as severe. So therefore, the drop has a greater chance of not bouncing all over the place. Okay, so this is the part where we start to take the pieces that we've kind of practiced or taken a look at and see if we can start to piece them all together. And hopefully end up in a place where we can have something at the end of this that looks more like a drop kick. So think back to when I was talking about just the regular rugby kick. That's where you just take the ball and you drop it on your foot. And think back to, I was talking about thirds, the thirds of the ball. So this is the top third, the middle third, and the bottom third. And you want to kick it right at the line of the bottom third. The reason for that is because if you hit it here, the chances are the ball is going to be going this way up, which is generally where you want to put it. Too high, the ball will go down. Too low, the ball will just kind of skim underneath itself and won't really go anywhere. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when you're dropping the ball, the goal is to make contact with the ball right as it touches the ground. Now, a common misconception is the ball needs to bounce before you kick it, which isn't the case. Technically, the ball only needs to touch the ground before you kick it. So ideally, you want to make contact with the ball right at that moment. Now, this is going to take quite a bit of practice because timing is the most difficult part of this skill. But for now, what we need to practice is kicking the ball without the ball moving. So again, plant 1, 2, 1, 2. And then I'm going to see if I can. I'm going to do my best to make contact with the ball on the lowest third. now that we've got that down pat, give that a couple tries, and then we can move right into the actual dropping and the kicking, because that's one of the most difficult parts. Into that, I just want to talk quickly about the actual kicking mechanics of the drop kick. So what needs to happen is, just like when we were doing our regular kick, our toe needs to be pointed, our leg needs to be relatively straight. But the most important part about this specific kick is the flick of your hips, because that's what's going to give you the most power. So when you're doing your drop kick, you obviously start with your 2 back, 2 left, or 2 right if you're a left-footed kicker. You start right leg first, plant, and then all the way through. Now, you need to drop the ball right before your plant leg touches the ground. So right leg first, before you hit, your foot and the ball should try to be hitting the ground around the same time, because what's going to happen is your kicking leg is going to be coming up from behind in that J motion significantly faster than your plant leg is going to be hitting the ground. So I'll show you what that looks like a little bit faster, and then after that I'll show you what it'll look like when you have the kick. So let's give that a try. 1, 2, 1, 2. So again, you're here, 1, drop, and by that point you see when I'm planting, my other leg is coming up nice and quick. So at a little bit faster of a pace, what I'm going to try to do is I'll try and show you in full view your step backs as well as your approach to the ball and the drop. So once again, we're going to be here. This is relatively flat. So 1, 2, 1, 2, and I'm going to come up on a diagonal. I'm approaching the ball as if I'm kicking it, even though we're not putting that piece in yet, because that's the last piece. And the timing of it is what ties it all together, which what makes it difficult. But for now, we're just going to take a look at the actual drop, the approach, and we should be in the right body position. So again, we're here, and then right foot. So we're here, drop. It's not very flat, move a little bit up. Okay, perfect, there we go. 1, 2, 1, 2 for it. But without further ado,